I will always be there to support my colleagues who seek to challenge racism in the academy. But as for me, I'm done.
Name your price in the beginning. If it ever gets more expensive than the price you name, get out of there. Thus, Africa.
When is enough enough? For me, a discussion with fellow educators led me to see my limits. The discussion started rather innocently. We talked about how we could improve the experience of student learning. Perhaps misjudging the air of camaraderie, I suggested the need to provide more context to our students. Often we transmit ideas to students without discussing how these ideas were developed. This is a significant issue. If we as educators do not show how these ideas were developed, students believe that these ideas are neutral, objective, and even universal. This is not the case. Ideas are developed in particular regions by particular people for particular purposes. We must inform students that many of these so-called universal ideas were developed by European men who often held despicable views about women and people of colour. Moreover, their ideas were not meant to benefit women and people of colour. Some authors have even argued that their ideas harmed and continue to harm women and people of colour. Our job as educators should be to expose these ideas, not to eradicate these ideas. I believe that this would be an impossible task. Unfortunately, these ideas are the air we breathe all the time and every day. After explaining this, without even knowing, I had triggered whiteness, an avalanche of whiteness. This is a step too far. Should we scrap everything? Should we stop listening to the compositions of Wagner? Wagner? I didn't even know who that was. At that point, I was confused. I said something very specific, but all of the responses were generic and scattered. I didn't understand this until I recalled a lecture by Christopher Hitchens.
I was very impressed by the torrent of bad faith in which I was immediately doused. By their arguments, ladies and gentlemen, you may know them. When people begin to introduce the irrelevant and the non sequitur and the generalization, you know you're onto something. For example, people say, do you mean that every artifact in every museum in Europe should immediately be returned to its country of origin? I think you can tell that that was not what I was saying. But could I get anyone to get off that song? I don't think I could. Do you see the analogy, perhaps, to what we're meant to discuss this evening? I think perhaps you might. There's a constant whine and drone, what I call a white whine, when this subject comes up. People say, what, you mean we'd have to go back and help the Comanches get there? You know how it goes.
I had been forced to drink what Hitchens called the white wine, and it was bitter. The servers of this wine were supposed to be anti-racist allies. One of these individuals had even helped me professionally, but all of this was made minuscule by their blind and passionate commitment to whiteness. It was at this moment that I said to myself, I'm done. I felt the pull of the conveyor belt. Tatum likens the conveyor belt to systemic racism. The belt moves in a direction that benefits the dominant group, regardless of an individual's path of travel on the belt. Whether one is standing by, walking in the direction of, or running in the opposite direction, the belt compels all of its passengers to acquiesce willingly or unwillingly to its forward momentum. Whiteness is found everywhere and nowhere. It is both implicit and explicit, sacred and profane. It is the very foundation of which our universities are built on. Thus, regretfully, I withdraw. I will always be there to support my colleagues. But as for me, I'm done.